Welcome to Ralph Bivens Project. I'm Ralph Bivens. We're here today with Dean Strombom, an architect who has a tremendous portfolio, 50 million square feet of projects over his long career. That's would translate out to about 50 or 60 skyscrapers, I think, something like that. But it's a lot, 1,000 projects. So but he's made a difference in what you see and where you go and where you work in this city and in other cities and around the country. And so he leads the planning and design of corporate campuses, commercial office building, workplace interiors, and mixed use development. He's a principal, and I guess we can say that Dean is retiring real soon after 43 years at Gensler, which of course is one of the biggest architecture firms in the world. But so, hey, congratulations, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I guess, looking back, I just started thinking, wow, starting in 1980, and just what's different about what's being built, the built environment. What are we seeing? What are developers building? What are architects designing? And what's different now than it was in 1980 when you started?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that are different. There's a lot of things that are still the same. When I joined Gensler in 1980, having just gotten my master's of architecture at University of Houston, 1980 was a heady time in Houston. Things were booming. I'm not sure I'd get a job at Gensler today, but at the time they really needed people to crank out the work. So I was very fortunate to start at Gensler at that time. It was not but 2 or 3 years later when the bottom fell out, and we've had multiple economic cycles in Houston over the years that I've been at Gensler. So I've seen those great times. I've seen times like now where we seem to be in transition. We're not quite sure what the future lies, but the world certainly shifted during the pandemic, and things will probably never be the same as they were before. It's impacted how and when and why people come to work. It's and certainly most recently impacted the capital markets, and so there's changes afoot. There's not a lot of need right now for office space unless it's part of an overall mixed use project, or a boutique office or a build to suit sort of thing. But other areas are doing well. I think we're still seeing work in life sciences, and when I started at Gensler, there was no such thing as life sciences. So that's sort of an up and coming thing. There's still quite a bit of mixed use work that we're doing. There's a lot of airport work. There's still quite a bit of higher ed and healthcare. We're not particularly in depth in healthcare at Gensler. We would like to be, and we're trying to get there. But I think that continues to be a strong suit in Houston, Texas, with our medical center. So
there's a lot of upside in that sector. Life sciences seems to. Man, there's a lot of construction. Heinz has that Levy development.
Levy
there.
Green, yeah.
Levy Green on,
yeah.
And of course, whatever they call the expansion to the medical center down there, where they're allowing pharmaceutical firms and other projects. It started off as TMC3, but I think they've tweaked the name a little bit, and they tweaked a lot since the start. First, it's going to be a helix thing with this great.
That's when we were involved. We did the initial master plan with the elevated helix, and it has been modified, and I think they're still trying to go forward with basic intent of what we had developed initially. But yeah,
Yeah,
things
that was
change.
cool. That was a cool design. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I saw that. I said, wow. Uh, but hey, we'll see how it comes out. It is they're working down there.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And then when you mentioned something a minute ago that we're seeing, I think there's some anxiety out there off and on, and uncertainty for sure about some of the financial situations that are going on, people on office buildings, and they're thinking, oh, what, um, we've got vacancy, but the people that are renewing are coming in and taking less space, and there's all these other things, pressures. Are they, and there have been some, I don't know if banks want to foreclose, right?
I don't think the lenders would necessarily want the buildings back, and so they're doing everything they can to make it happen. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we've certainly been involved with across North America these days is what are we going to do with these office buildings that don't really function very well as office buildings any longer. We have an overabundance of office space and probably a shortage of residential. And so there's conversations going around the country about the ease of converting office building to residential occupancy. And we were contacted by the city of Calgary. Actually, I think before the pandemic, Calgary, like Houston at the time, was faced with a lot of buildings downtown Calgary that weren't well occupied. And they hired Gensler to do a survey of all buildings downtown to see which of them could be converted to residential. And through that process, we developed a kind of a clever little algorithm to evaluate things like building skin, neighborhood, floor plate configuration, core to window wall dimension, and came up with a way of scoring buildings for their compatibility or to be converted to residential. And since then, we've been hired by several other cities to look at their downtown properties. And I know City of Houston is certainly looking at that as well these days through Central Houston, trying to figure out which buildings make sense for conversion and how do we, or to what extent do we need to incentivize building owners to make those conversions, because it's not an inexpensive process. So.
Not all of them will work.
Right.
Well,
so
what's the easy way that you walk in a building, empty office building somewhere, and is there something you can walk in and say, you're in there 2 minutes, you say, no, don't put this on the list.
Yeah, almost. I mean, the algorithm that we've developed, we put in a lot of information. It's some 20 odd questions that we ask the building owner. And actually, a lot of the information we can gather just through CoStar. But within a few minutes, we can spit out an answer score between 0 and 100. And what we've been generally looking at, if your building scores 80 and above, then it's really probably a good option to convert it to residential. Below 80, the further you are below 80, the less likely it makes sense. And we've now, I think, evaluated some 1,200 buildings in cities across the country, and I think the breakdown is about 70% of them just don't make sense for conversion. So
don't make sense.
it's the larger floor plates are difficult. Modern window walls, curtain walls that are all glass, don't make as much sense as. So it's interesting. It's actually the older buildings that have smaller footprints and punched windows that are easier to convert for residential uses. So.
Well, what about in Calgary, Ken? Up there, did any of those buildings in their downtown been redeveloped into residential yet?
Yeah, we did one building that I know of that we converted to residential, and it's worked out really well. Um, the city of Calgary decided that they would incentivize building owners to the tune of $75 a square foot as an incentive, um, which helps a lot. So without that, what we found to convert a building to an office building to residential cost at least $250 a square foot, upwards of $400 a square foot, just depending on a lot of different factors. So, if you're unless your building is valued at zero or close to it, certainly under $100, then it's going to be difficult to financially make that math work. So incentives by local municipalities are really needed for building owners to make that step.
Well, I guess Mayor Turner needs to get with it in Houston.
Yeah. Hopefully there'll be some incentives. You recall they had incentives for new residential development several years ago, and they were providing incentives for I don't
To
remember
build,
exactly what
it's
to
like,
build
I
to
think
build
it's
new now
$15,000
per unit or something,
per
right?
unit.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so we need something like that for conversion of older buildings to residential. I think if we had a program like that, it would obviously be good for those building owners. It would add to the uh, to the taxes add taxes for downtown, and most importantly, from my perspective, it makes downtown a more vibrant place to be. So if we can just get more people living downtown and working downtown and enjoying the amenities of downtown, um, then I think that would be a terrific thing. That as long as I've been in Houston, we've always suffered for lack of people on the streets, uh, 24/7. And so I think if we could work on the residential side, that would help a lot.
Yeah, I know. I remember reading this hilarious quote from former mayor of Dallas, Laura Miller, and she said, and she was talking about the tunnels and how they were a negative thing for the downtown, and how it's like, still people walking on the street and have that they're kind of underneath, and you don't get out, and they don't participate in the the sidewalk. They're just not there. But anyways, if I had my way, I'd take a cement mixer and fill them full of concrete.
Yeah, I mean, I will say on a day like today where it's over 100 degrees, it's kind of, and if you have to walk all the way across downtown, it's nice to do it in the tunnel. But more often than, I mean, anytime I have a chance, I try to walk on the street, not in the tunnels.
Downtown, I mean, we need more people. I know there's, I think we're fighting what, you've worked on too, is the work from home stuff, it's people want to work, they start working from home in the pandemic, and it's can be convenient, I mean, and things, because you don't have to commute. There are downsides to it, of course, but a lot of the employees, they don't want to have to drive downtown anymore. I don't know, but I think you've been helping your clients, the building owners, address some of that. What can we do to our downtown office buildings and downtown office campuses and complexes, big ones like Allen Center and Houston Center. I know you've done a lot of work at Houston Center. What they've got, 4 or 5 office towers standing there, and they're not full, and they're trying to attract new tenants. What's the remedy for those guys?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors in there, but first and foremost, I think you've got to create an environment that's a work environment that's better there than anywhere else. So if you have a choice of working at home or working at the office, and you see that coming to the office uh, makes you more productive. Your friends and colleagues are there. You've got great coffee. You've got other amenities in the neighborhood, and you wake up in the morning. You have a choice as to where to work, and you say, "Well, I want to work in my office downtown or wherever." Um, so, from a design perspective, that's what we're trying to do in workplace today is to create these work environments that people want to be in, and so that's sort of our charge. And then I think from on a broader perspective, uh, you know, at at a neighborhood level, if you will, or a district level, we see these enclaves of office buildings around downtown. And Houston Center is a great example of that, where Brookfield owns buildings on both sides of the street across McKinney, um, and they're able by doing that to actually work on the ground plane between those buildings and include plazas and things like that at the street level, then improve the buildings themselves and create sort of a little Houston Center district where the tenants that work here, some 2 million square feet of tenant space, they all see the benefits of being here with all of the food and beverage and entertainment going on, and the new highlight, new restaurants down in the street level, um, and common areas within the buildings that are attractive, um, and modern, and then the proximity to Discovery Green and the convention district and all that. I think Houston Center uh, has become a place, and it's got a little ways to go, but I think it's becoming a place where people want to be, and it's going to get better and better over time. Um, but again, personally, I think it would be great to have some residential in or around Houston Center as well, and the more people that can be here in the evenings and throughout the day and weekends, enjoying those amenities, the more vibrancy and liveliness we're going to have on the street within the district.
Well, I know that the Houston Center of the uh, you, I think it's called Highlight now, but it was called the Park Shops and
Right.
some other things over the years, and a tough play. It's really, I would think, the building was uh, just wasn't designed with retail in mind. I think initially, it was kind of brick all the way around. It's like, oh, there's actually stores in there. And for
Yeah,
people that work downtown, you would go, oh, well, I can wiggle around through the tunnels, and which I did. I could do it. I had the tunnels down pat,
yeah,
but I did have to go tunnelize, get to the food court there, and there, have lunch there for a change, do something different. And there was, some other retail, a bookstore, some apparel and things. But always a tough play, always a tough haul to make it something better. But I think the latest thing that you were handling, Dean, was renaming it the Highlight, and then going to I guess the east end of this building, and it would where it kind of addresses closer to the convention center.
right.
Tell us
Yeah,
a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about how the Highlight
sure.
it worked out.
Well, you and I both remember early days in Houston, or earlier days where we had Foley's downtown, we had Sakowitz department store, we had Battlestein's, and we had shopping and retail downtown, like a lot of cities today have. And over the years, we've lost that to the point where Park Shops is really the only retail left downtown, other than individual sandwich shops and things. So it, for the people that work in buildings, at least on this side of town, it was at least a convenient place to go grab a bite or, um, you know, buy a suit or whatever. Um, and I think that today people aren't necessarily looking for soft goods downtown, but but they are interested in more entertainment, more food and beverage. And so Brookfield's retail group, their national group, and their brokers are, have been looking across the country for unique tenants to bring to the highlight. Then we did a renovation of it to just kind of clean it up. It was a pretty tired looking downtown mall when it was the park shops. Now it's a lot better, and they've secured some good tenants. Putt Shack is one of those at the West End.
Yeah, I've heard a
And
lot about Putt Shack.
yeah,
I was in Atlanta where a couple of years ago, and they had one there in a downtown location, sort of in Midtown. But they were packing them in.
Yep.
They do food and alcohol, and it's not as much of a kiddie thing.
Right.
Like
Really all
like the way
ages
we
now.
used to
Yeah.
play. No, as a dog, it's an adult thing. But I've heard that, well, especially since it's indoor there and
Yeah.
hottest blazes right now. I've heard that it's really performing, maybe even exceeding expectations.
Yeah. And they've got a bunch of other letters of intent out for other entertainment, food and beverage tenants that will occupy that space and energize the space. In the meantime, Papa's Steakhouse there on the ground floor is one of the most successful Papa's restaurant in their whole chain.
Really?
And being just a couple of blocks away from the convention center district there, I think we can add the food and beverage and entertainment, then you'll get people that are coming to conventions to take a little bit of a walk and come over and enter. We did also open it up to the ground floor through creating a sort of a glass box on the corner at the east end and an escalator that it brings you directly up to that first level of the shopping area. So that's helped as well. As you mentioned, it was just sort of a brick wrapped food court for the most people, for the most part. And so
big one, 200,000 feet or something.
Yeah.
It's not tiny, but
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, adding on that, the glass there to make it less imposing, and just to let people know that this is where you can walk in and get a bite to eat. Something. That was a great move.
Mhm.
And then that we there, I guess it's two Houston Center. One of the towers, a big tower. There's the outdoor plaza,
Right.
and kind of a outside spiral staircase or
Right.
something. I don't know what it's made of, but it's bright and shiny and an eye catcher.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole area was, I think, was a big part of the sort of renovation of Houston Center. Brookfield wanted to start with 1 and 2 Houston Center, or Lindell Basel Tower and 2 Houston Center, and they always had an elevated outdoor space off of that's sort of in between LBT and 2 Houston Center, but it wasn't very attractive and it was tired, and so we redid that whole area, and then we redid the ground plane in front of Lindell Basel Tower. Again, that was a green space plaza there, but it had a big berm on it, and you couldn't really see the front door of the building for the berm, and so we flattened all that out and made that more inviting. And then we added another level, elevated, sort of between the existing upper level and the ground plane, sort of what a mezzanine level area, and that's right off of the new fitness center in LBT, and so there's yoga and other outdoor activities going on at that level. So I think this sort of terraced approach of green space that all tenants these days seem to be looking for outdoor space connected to their office space. That's been a big hit. And then, the spiral staircase that sort of ties it all together, and it serves as sort of that iconic element that it's certainly Instagrammable, and it's one of those elements that people begin to know Houston Center as that place with the spiral staircase.
It's a yeah, an icon. You know, it is. It's there. It's catching. It catches your eye. Sure does. And I guess part of that, since we're talking about to Houston, I believe you know, Gensler itself, you know, had been in Pennzoil Place for quite a while, and you guys moved your offices, which are pretty good size, and moved them over there. So tell us a little bit about that deal. That's,
well, you know,
Pennzoil is kind of that's a landmark in and of itself too. You know?
Yeah.
You guys had been there and left. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Gensler started in Houston. This is our second office for Gensler. San Francisco is our home and corporate office. But Houston opened to do Pennzoil's headquarters, actually, the interiors of that in 1972. And we officed for my entire career on that intersection, three corners of that intersection of Rusk and Louisiana. When I started at Gensler, we were in what was called the Welltech building at the time. And we were there for 10 years, and we moved catty corner to the new Republic Bank building. And we were there for 10 years, and then we moved across the street again to Pennzoil Place. We were in the North Tower for 10 years and the South Tower for 12 years. And as our lease was beginning to expire at Pennzoil, we had just been awarded the repurposing or renovation of Houston Center, of all these public spaces, and as part of that, we were, you know, familiarizing ourselves with all of the spaces within the buildings, looking for opportunities, and kind of came upon this space that hadn't been leased for at least 10 years into Houston Center. I believe it used to be Shell's trading floors. Very unique floors, tied to the sort of mini atrium of 2 Houston Center, and they were, quite frankly, spaces that nobody seemed to want. They were, at the time when we were looking at them, they were tenant storage areas on the backside, and we looked at the space and said, you know, this is really going to be amazing space, but it's going to take a really smart architect to figure out how to make it work. So we talked to Brookfield about us moving to this space, and that we negotiated it over time. But we had the advantage of knowing what Houston Center was going to be like, and we wanted to be part of that effort and be pioneers in this sort of new look and feel of Houston Center, and to move our offices became sort of part of the equation. So it worked out well for us. It's a terrific place to work. Back to what we were talking about earlier, I think it's a space that I know our employees love to come to work every day, and so we're not.
Yeah, that, you know, I was there at your, you know, opening reception, and when you open your offices in Houston, you have all that outdoor space there with the elevated, you know, like an elevated patio in the office tower. Was pretty cool place to just get outside and be, you know, breathe some unair conditioned air and hear birds and things like that.
You know, we started the conversation about what's different between then and now, and we have 2 outdoor areas connected to our space, and they were both smoking areas for the tenants in the building. So that was the place where, if you were a smoker, you'd go outside there. And then, since we took the space on that level, really the only way to get to those 2 spaces is through our space. So by default, it sort of became Gensler's space for our employees outside.
That's
so
great, man. That's
worked to our advantage.
I don't, but that's a good question though. What about smokers who don't? You know, it's like we don't talk about that much anymore, and I don't think about it. But you used to, people had to go outside and you have a smoke on the sidewalk and everything. And now I've seen some little signs sometimes saying, don't stay 50 feet away from this door if you're going to have a smoke.
Right. Well, before that, at least when I joined Gensler, you could smoke in buildings, and
Yeah.
I remember going over to the Chronicle building and seeing stained ceiling tiles that we had to trade out with renovations.
Yeah, when people smoked in the newsroom, we smoked in the newsroom.
Yeah.
And and nobody said anything, but people all around you smoke, and
Yeah.
It was not, and even sometimes it just didn't happen often, but sometimes in the evening, the guys would even smoke cigars in there,
Right.
So not just a cigarette.
Yeah.
Go heavy duty with a cigar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of
So
course,
things have changed
Yes.
in work these days.
Yeah, it really has. Anyway, I did want to ask you about this. You've had this tremendous career in Houston, and you've been to the University of Houston. You know this town pretty damn well. So, what? Where are we? Where are we, and where are we going? I guess is the essence of my question. Where's Houston right now? Where are we going?
Well, I think Houston, this transition seems to be the word of the day these days, and it certainly is in the energy business, and I think it is for cities as well. Texas has the benefit of a lot of people moving to Texas from other parts of the country, and Houston, I think has benefited quite a bit from those moves. But the fact of the matter is, Houston's a very spread out city. I don't know. Last I heard, it was some 60 miles across the city in any direction. So it's never has been a particularly dense area, and that is good and bad. I think it's sometimes you need to promote density to make things more vibrant. And the density that we have is really at a very at a small scale. So you look at Memorial City, for example, which is thriving and has something like 90+% leased. They've got all the entertainment and residential and food and beverage, office, everything all together there, and it's doing extremely well, better than probably any place in the city. But it's sort of a microcosm, if you will, and then you get beyond that, and you get to the energy corridor, and I think the energy corridor's making a comeback now, but it's really been depressed over the last several years. So I think things are just, all we know is things are going to change. We still don't know what the total impact has been with the pandemic and what that means. We do know it has changed the way people look at work and when they work and how they work. And I don't, we certainly don't have a crystal ball, but we are, we do know that people enjoy being with other people. That we need social connections to be healthy, we're working very hard at that. But it's we're almost looking at it sort of area by area. We're doing work in Sugarland, we're doing work in Energy Corridor, we're doing work in the Woodlands, and downtown, and each one of them we're doing really interesting work, but at a smaller scale or a more diverse scale, I guess.
Well, nobody's building a 50-story tower right now.
Not right now.
They'd be crazy to do it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about things like transit and trains? Talk about, I think the figure is 640 square miles, and right, yeah, maybe it is 63 miles across, but but now you look at it and it doesn't. The south part of Houston is pretty much where Galveston is, and the north part is actually on the north part of Conroe. It's north of
Conroe now. It
It's
used to be
like
the Woodlands. Now it's Conroe. Yeah.
It's like 100 miles from the southern Galveston to Willis, I guess it is.
And that makes it very difficult for public transit when you're trying to connect that much land with people with the disparate population. It makes it tough to have a robust public transportation system to tie that all together.
Well, Dean, on a personal note here, I just want to thank you. You've helped me so many times to get a handle on some of these concepts that you're a master at, and you've always taken time to take my calls and do interview with me and things and interviews, and we've just been very, very helpful, and I really appreciate it.
Well,
and I hope you do. I hope you enjoy your retirement or whatever you have planned. But you've left a mark on the city, and your family should be proud of you for that. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it is a bittersweet thing. I will be retiring September 1st from Gensler, and that happens to be my 43rd anniversary. So for 43 years, I've gotten up every day and gone to work. So September 2nd happens to be a Saturday, so I do know that won't be any different for a Saturday. But it'll be strange, but I'm really looking forward to traveling more, taking some classes, still probably doing a little bit of consulting here and there, depending on what our clients' needs are, and if I can help out, then I look forward to doing some of that as well. But I'll be in Houston and looking forward to how things develop over time in Houston.
Yeah. Well, I hope our paths cross soon.
I'm sure they will.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.